The Maple Leafs get set for a showdown in Sunrise, but could it also be a round one preview? We'll discuss that possibility, Matthew's reaction to Ovechkin's record, and so much more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. What's happening, Dave? How are you feeling on a Tuesday?
Feeling pretty good, just 6 more games.
Six more games. That's right. Game 77 tonight down in Florida. It's funny, though, because like a week ago, I feel like this game it felt like this game was going to mean so much more, but it really doesn't mean there's still some meaning to it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the Leafs are still very much in a dogfight. Tampa won last night, so that got them to within, a couple of points again of the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Florida is floundering and in absolute freefall mode right now. Florida's way closer to falling into a wild card spot than they are winning a division at this point. So, from a perspective of it, Florida and Toronto, this game having implications on whether or not either of those two, I guess, can win a division is out the window. It's now really Toronto's to lose at this point. I think Florida's chances, like Money Puck has them at like 0.4% odds to win the division, which is a crazy turnaround from when these two teams played literally a week ago.
Like the fact that at this point, I said many times that this 2-game stretch was going to define more about where things were going to go, but I thought that was going to be for the Atlantic Division. Now it can be for a very different reason. Like, this is not about Florida challenging for the Atlantic Division. I think that ship has sailed for them because of where they're currently the fact that they've lost so many games in a row, and they're clearly not pushing for guys who are banged up to play. So they're like, we're not going for the division. We're going for health and maybe giving ourselves not throwing everything that the Leafs may want to see from us in a potential round one series.
Yeah, it's interesting, but there's 6 points out, so they're definitely, I think, first place is probably gone. Like, even if they win tonight, Toronto still has a game in hand, plus they'd be up 4 points if Florida gets the win, but they still could get home ice in round one. That's the thing that kind of I find perplexing about what they did the other day. Sunday, they decided they were going to sit Sam Bennett, they were going to sit Forsling, they were going to sit Sam Reinhart, and just have like half of their salary cap sitting up in the press box, pretty much more than half of their salary cap sitting up in the press box, and just kind of punting on the rest of the season, it feels like, or they at least punted on that specific game, which I just find peculiar because home ice is still up for grabs for them. Like, that's what they got to play for now. Like, I think it's likely that it's going to end up being the Leafs finishing atop of the division, followed by either Tampa or Florida. They're only separated by 4 points. But like, home ice is still going to be important for both of those teams. You would think Florida at least would still be gunning for that with 6 games to go, as opposed to already being in rest and see mode for some of their star players. Kind of baffles me. I just think it's a tad premature to start resting guys with home ice still very much attainable for them.
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, unless they're like really banged up and they risk further injury, like I don't know.
Everyone's banged up. That's like, everyone's banged up, but you're playing through it at this. The only other thing I can think of, Dave, is like, is Florida in tank mode to play Toronto and avoid Tampa?
Yeah,
is that maybe part of it?
The term from the article I edited from Luke Fox today, sandbagging. Are the Panthers sandbagging? It was. I'll give I'll give Biz credit because he's the one that threw it out there when the Panthers were playing Detroit on Sunday. He put the tinfoil hat on, and he's like, "The smells fishy." Right?
Yeah.
We know Kachuk has a legitimate injury.
Yes.
Ekblad, that's a suspension.
Yeah.
But when you sit Bennett, when you sit Reinhardt, Kulikov's also dealing with something.
Out. Yeah, he's been hurt.
Yeah, like
Forsling out, Barkov out.
Yeah,
it's a long list.
It's a long list, and we know that some teams have this idea of we don't show everything because we want to have some mystery element when the playoffs come around, like not knowing.
Yeah, but what mystery element, like that makes sense in like football. I don't really know what, if there's much of a mystery element in hockey, like what could you really throw at them that you don't like? You've played these teams 3-4 times each by the time the playoff rolls around, and you've got you got 82 games worth of film, and you've got years of worth of film realistically, and it's not like it's a new coach. It's Paul Maurice. Like he's had the same system for his whole career. I don't really know. I don't buy that. I think it's rest simply, just trying to make sure that their players are, healthy come playoff time. I just think that it's interesting that they're opting for rest over going and competing for the division or competing for home ice at least, which is still attainable if they can grab that 2 seed in round number 1. Is it maybe something that Toronto should start thinking about potentially down the road? I want to get into that conversation a little bit later, Dave, because there is a couple players specifically that I think could benefit from that. But again, we'll chat about that in a minute. But yeah, Leafs in Florida tonight down in Sunrise is the first night of a back-to-back for the Leafs. Tomorrow they'll play Tampa. But yeah, it's interesting. We don't know who's going to be the starter. There was no practice. It was an optional skate, and a lot of players opted not to skate, considering that they have 2 back-to-backs this week. Kind of a crazy schedule at this point in the season for the Maple Leafs to have 2 back-to-backs down the stretch here in the same week, but it is what it is. And so we're not sure exactly what the lineup's going to look like. I'd imagine it'll look very similar to what we saw at least the other night, because we do know that neither Jake McCabe or David Kampf will play.
No, and we kind of suspect. I kind of suspect that at least for Jake McCabe, we don't know what's going on with David Kampf. I can't that's like a mystery one there.
I thought I read somewhere, or maybe it came out. Berube said a couple of weeks. I thought I had heard there was like a couple of weeks timeline on Kampf from somewhere. Did I misread that? Did I not read that from what? Did you hear anything about that? I could have sworn I read that.
I didn't see anything concrete from Berube. All I heard him say was day to day, they're not playing the 2 games. Like I didn't hear anything, especially for Kampf. And McCabe isn't obviously likable because that looks like a shoulder, just based on what has been seen on video. So we know. I mean, Tanev was dealing with a shoulder one too, and that took him out. Oh, how many games was Tanev out? I think about.
Yeah, he missed 6 games.
Yeah, 6 games. So there's a chance that McCabe could be out for the remainder of the regular season. Potentially.
Well, I mean, they're not going to play. Injury. They've both been declared out for the Florida trip. So tonight, not playing, and then also in Tampa, they won't be playing either. Could be precautionary, or there could be something a little bit more serious afoot. We still don't know exactly, and trying to figure out anything from these Maple Leafs is like pulling teeth at this point. So I fully don't expect for us to get a whole lot of information on what's going on there, but neither expected to play over the next couple of games. But yeah, I expect to see probably the same lineup. Expect to see Anthony Stolarz get the start again, and then put Wall against Tampa tomorrow. I would think.
I would say so.
Yeah, that would probably
like Joseph Wall loves playing against Tampa too, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yes, it does. All right, Dave, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll take a look at the lineups that both teams will be putting out there, and I've got an interesting question for you, and it has to do with John Tavares, and should they rest him down the stretch? That conversation coming up next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I use the money, it's good to just kind of see where my money is being spent. I can budget a lot easier. And if I wanted to track everything that happened last year versus this year, it can be all done in the one app. And it's all convenient. You can put your investments, you can put your financial goals, you can even set your long-term goals in the app. And if you're managing money with your partner, it's smoother than ever. You can track all shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances, and with Monarch Money, use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, David Morassutti with you, as we are each and every weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast at. Just search up Locked On Leafs and you'll find us. You can also find the show on YouTube as well. It's all Leafs all the time. Toronto Maple Leafs in action tonight, taking on the Florida Panthers. About a week ago, they beat the Panthers 3-2, and since then, Toronto, they have not lost a game. They are riding quite the streak right now. 8-1-1 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. Can't say the same for the Panthers, who've now lost 5 straight. And sandwiched in the middle of those 5 games is a 3-2 loss to Toronto back on April 2nd. So 2 teams going in completely opposite directions here as the playoffs are fastly approaching. And I do wonder, Dave, like, if you are Florida, like if Toronto's in the same boat, right, where like Marner was hurt, Matthews was injured, let's say McCabe, I guess, is out, and Carlo gets hurt, and like all these injuries, right? All these injuries are happening, and you're keeping guys out, and you're resting players. You know, Nylander comes out for a couple of games rest. Like, how would you feel if you were Florida, knowing like, hey, this team's losing games? I know they don't really have their lineup ready to go, but like, is there going to be like rust with this group once the playoffs come with all that's happening? Like, I don't know. Florida's interesting. They're in an interesting spot. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I feel like they need to start winning some games here down the stretch to kind of get the good vibes rolling again.
Well, obviously, with the 2 runs that they've had to the Cup final, this is a team that understands what it takes to get there. But, you know, you look at the first run that they made, that was almost a clean sweep, right? Pretty sure, like, when you look at that, like, that's a team that found a groove at the right time. You want to take a chance that, you know what, yeah, we'll figure it out when the playoffs come. The guys will be ready to go. That's a big gamble to take, especially because there's a lot of miles on these players. You know, especially guys like Barkov, Tkachuk, Bobrovsky, Ekblad, Bennett. Like, these guys have Reinhart. These guys have played a lot of hockey. So I think the last thing that if you're Florida, you don't want to take. I don't think you want to take that chance. I think you want to make sure that, as you say, have the guys ready to go. If you can get some of them back before the playoffs. Obviously, Tkachuk is the only one that won't be because of the LTIR wizardry that they had to do to get Seth Jones in. But the rest of them, yeah, I don't know if you can totally say, yeah, let's shut these guys down for the remainder of the regular season and just hope that it can all be picked up come game 1 of the playoffs.
Yeah, and is it 1 or 2? I think it's 2 games. Ekblad will be out for the first two games. Yeah, the playoffs, due to his 20-game suspension, was still just came out of absolute nowhere. Kind of crazy. that whole situation. But
Mhm.
so they'll look to try and get back into the winning ways tonight, I'm sure, unless they truly are trying to tank so they could play Toronto instead of Tampa, which I still tinfoil hat theory has me thinking that could be what's going on here. Why don't we take a look at the lineup that Florida could be throwing out there tonight? Because it's a very watered down lineup to what it typically would look like, and it's due to injury and it's due to guys being held out, and we don't even know if Reinhardt and Bennett are going to play tonight. This is just what their lineup looks like regularly. You've got Verhaeghe with Rodriguez and Sam Reinhart, Sam Miscavige with Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand, Boquist, Lundell, Luosterainen, Greer, Sturm, and Gadjevich. I think Sturm even has missed a couple of games of late as well for the Florida Panthers. So it's not the lineup that you typically see. Again, missing Barkov, and defensively, you're missing a bunch of a couple of your top 4 players as well. And I'll be curious to see if they play Bennett and Reinhardt or Marchand, or if they decide to sit anyone in this game, similar to the way they did Sunday against the Detroit Red Wings.
Yeah, I think especially, if they had like these are guys that don't also want to sit. We know hockey players that they can play, they want to play. Marchand's an interesting one because he did have that injury when he got traded to Florida. And you wonder was he totally 100% when they brought him back? Reinhardt, that's an interesting one because he's been pretty durable during his time in Florida. Bennett as well. Like these are guys I don't really associate injuries with. So yeah, I think it all depends on the players too, right? The players are kind of just like, we want to play, we don't want to. We feel we're fine. I don't think Paul Maurice would take them out unless there's something that is seriously going to hamper them.
Mikkola and Seth Jones as the top pair, Kiersted Schmidt as your second pair, Megna and Belinsky's as the third pair, and it'll be one of Sergei Bobrovsky or Vitek Vanacek in net for Florida. I guess that might also kind of tip the scales on what Florida wants to do. If they start Vanacek, they're not serious. Let's be honest. If they start Vanacek in this game, they're not serious about winning hockey games. They're not serious about keeping in lockstep with Tampa and Toronto, and they're just limping to the end, hoping to get everyone back for game 1 and everything's okay. That's what that would tell me, based on like their goalie starter tonight could tell me how they plan on attacking the season, or at least the final 5-6 games for them. All right, let's quickly take a look at Toronto's lineup, or expected lineup for tonight. No difference from the other night. Nyes with Matthews and Marner, McMahon, Tavares, and Nylander, Lawton, Domi, and your boy Callie, and Lawrence Holmberg and Nicky Bobby will get in there and stay in there with David Kampf still out for the next couple of games. So Nick Robertson, another opportunity to prove that he should remain in the lineup coming off a 2-goal game. He's got to keep it up. He can't just score 2 goals and go silent for 5 games. That's not how he's going to land on the roster for game 1 of the playoffs. He's got to keep the production coming because that's what he's here to do, provide tertiary scoring. And he did that the other night. He's got to continue to do that if he wants a spot in this lineup.
He does. And look, it's not even about, he doesn't have to go and score a bunch of goals. He needs to have a presence offensively. He also can't take stupid penalties because that's been a problem. Like that was like, it wouldn't have mattered sometimes if he scored because that negates some of those penalties. But there were times he was taking a penalty and like, what are you doing? You're not playing enough to justify taking penalties like this. And I'm pretty sure.
Tripping call in the neutral zone, brother. What are we doing? No. Aaron stick, a little high sticking. It's like, brother, keep your stick on the ice, man. Yeah, a couple stupid penalties, but I'm still pulling for Nicky Bobby. Still want him to try and do as much as he can, try and earn himself an opportunity to start in the playoffs, or at least. Maybe the plan actually should be to scratch him game 1, play him game 2, scratch him game 3, play him game 4, and then just literally every other night scratch him you're guaranteed to get a goal every other night. That's basically what you'll get out of Nicky Bobby, and that might be what the Leafs might have to do to guarantee a goal a night every other game.
History tells us. History tells us that.
Yeah,
can't go against the stats.
No, should never go against the stats. Tremendous information is everything, my friend. It is everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what happens tonight, though. Should still be a decent hockey game. It's only 6 more of these regular season games. I'm ready for it to end, Dave. We've got to that point, where it's like, let's just wrap it up. Honestly, let's wrap up the regular season. The second I saw Florida, like I know we're kind of beating a dead horse at this point, but like the second I saw them sit Reinhart and Bennett, I'm like, unserious team. They're not going for it. It's that time of year. Let's just wrap up the regular season. I know we're gonna actually end up getting more games in the future, like the new CBA is coming out, and there's a chance that it moves from 82 to 84 game regular season. But I don't know, man. I feel like they should just not get like take out 6 games instead. Let's get 76 game seasons in there so that we don't have to play this extra 6 weeks, and we could wrap up the year by early April, get things going. It's wrapped up by the first week of June. The Stanley Cup final could be handed out. A little off topic, but yeah, that's just how I feel. Little mini rant there, Dave. My apologies.
It's what everybody asks for, more regular season games. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, looks like you're going to get it.
How dare you take away what the people want, Mike? How dare you suggest it?
Well, that being said, I think it's because a lot of games become meaningless. And if there's a couple meaningless games for Toronto, I think they should really seriously consider resting a couple of players the final week of the season. I'll tell you why next here on the Locked On Leafs podcast.
Today's show is also brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. Look, the last thing you want is to go each day without the right person, because honestly, every day without that person in that job is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidate right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockdown right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need.
The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti on a game day. Toronto down in Florida. Game 1 of a back-to-back. Florida tonight, Tampa tomorrow. And the Leafs can pretty well all but wrap up this division race if they can win both games. And if that happens, Dave, so, I don't want to say that for sure they should do this, but if they do, it will give them a significant chance of winning the division, not really mattering what happens in the final 4 games of the season after this. At that point, they should have enough of a buffer. Plus, the opponents they're playing, not very good. Detroit, Ottawa, Buffalo. It's just, or Detroit, Montreal, Buffalo. It's just not great opponents. I feel like I would probably rest John Tavares game 80 and 81 and 82. That would be my philosophy if I were the Maple Leafs. If you can win this back-to-back, that allows you to rest guys like Tavares, guys like Riley. McCabe, sure, put him on LTIR, get him rested up for the playoffs, camp, whatever. You want to put him on for the playoffs. That allows you to bring guys like Pacioretty to play a game. You can call up a guy like a Ryan Reeves to get him into a game so that he's not completely, forgetting what it's like to play in the NHL after playing in the American League for the last couple of weeks. Get some NHL games back under his belt, perhaps. I feel like that's what could happen if the Leafs are able to pull off the sweep this week. I think it allows for the team to kind of coast into the back, the final few games of the year and maybe rest some of their stars, and there's no player who I think would benefit more than John Tavares.
Yeah, I just remember when we had we've had that conversation before with, should the Leafs be sitting guys? Should they hold them back? And like we remember the Leafs did this whole period where they kind of spread it out with who would get a night off and this and that. Yeah, I think it's all depends on how the player feels about coming out when there maybe isn't an injury keeping them out. I think that's where it comes from. And look, John Tavares, I think, as you mentioned, what really concerns me about him is how many minutes he does play per night. He is taking on such a bigger workload that you don't want to hear that he's dealing with something nagging or like the playoffs come around, it's like, there's a lot of miles on him. And
That's what I'm more concerned about would be like that he just runs out of gas. Like I don't want him to run out of gas. I would love for him to get, if you win these games, then you say to him, all right, you don't got to worry about Buffalo. You don't got to worry about Detroit. Game 81, 82, just get some rest and recover your body. And then come game 1 of the playoffs, you'll have a week off in between games there, a full week off to rejuvenate, rest, recover. And we've seen when Tavares gets some time off to recover mid-season, whether it's after an injury, an all-star game, Christmas break, he's got more goals than anyone else in hockey since the Four Nations face-off break. Like, he usually comes out and gets shot out of a cannon when he gets that rest to kind of recover and get back to being an all-star superstar player. So I just feel maybe getting him a week off, recharge those legs a little bit, recharge that body, give him some rest, and then come playoff time, hopefully, he can shoot himself right out of that cannon like he did coming out of the Four Nations face-off.
Well, especially for Tavares, I think when you consider the matchups that like the Leafs top 6 play more than their fair share, and Tavares has played so much of that defense role. I just don't want to see a situation where it's clear he doesn't have the legs, right? And I know, you'll get a few games off between the end of the regular season and the start of the playoffs, but you can't guarantee you're going to get enough time to give these guys a chance to reset. So, okay, if let's say maybe 2 would be too much for him, offer the 1. That final game, don't play. You kind of can even alternate between sitting Matthews 1, Tavares the other, if you really want to, not put Tavares in a position where he feels like, no, I don't need to sit out. But it's like, take the opportunity, because we also saw what happened to Willie and Matthews at the end of last season. They did play those games. Willie was not ready for the start of the playoffs.
Well, yeah, he took a hit in the final game of the season and scrambled his brain. They had migraines for the first 3 games of the season. Like, missed the first few games of the playoffs, which is kind of forgot about that. That's kind of crazy. Like, think about last year's playoff. They had Willie missed 3 games, Matthews missed a couple, and then Joseph Woll hurts his back with 1 second left in the game in game 6, and then has to pull shoot the day of game 7. Like 20 minutes before the game, we hear, sounds like it's going to be Samsonov, not Woll, in this one. And we're like, excuse me? What a wild series that turned out to be. But yeah, I just, there's no other player who I think would benefit more from rest than a guy like Tavares. But here's the thing, like, this article from USA Today, I'm pretty sure is accurate, but the playoffs are scheduled to begin on April 19th. The Leafs' last game is April 17th. So if whoever plays game 82 is going to have to play 2 days later, that's not nearly enough rest. That's why I think you have to miss 81 and 82 for it to make sense, because then you're missing the 15th and the 17th game. So you play that final game against Carolina, could be a meaningful game. Play Carolina, and it's on April 13th. And then 6 days later, you get a little 6-day cushion, nearly a full week, 6 days off to go out there and get it done. Or maybe if the division's wrapped up, you beat Florida, you beat Tampa, you beat Montreal, boom, 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 and all of a sudden you've got a 6-point cushion with just 3 games to go. Maybe you don't need to play any of those games, and you don't have to play Carolina in the back-to-back. And you could just finish it up, with Montreal, and then game 80, 81, 82. He gets the rest, and Tavares gets a full week off. You give Riley a game. You give, whoever needs a game off. Maybe Tanev gets a game off or 2 at some point here in the final 3 games. That's just where my head's going. Now, Florida's already started to do it. I think if Toronto can wrap things up and win these next 2 games in Florida and in Tampa, it just affords them a much better, more flexibility with what they could do with their roster in terms of resting guys, and won't have to play down to the wire for the division, which looked like they were going to have to do that a week ago. Now, well, they've got a bit more of a cushion, and perhaps with the way Florida's playing, Tampa finally got a win there, but they had lost a couple there in a row as well. That's also kind of playing a role in this as well, right? But I don't know. Your thoughts?
I just think that the division likely gets wrapped up pretty soon, just with the way that these 2 games. Look, the Leafs could just say, let's get these 2 games done. That pretty much gives us the division in a good spot. But I also don't want, because it's happened before, we know with this team that sometimes they get into a bit of a lull. I don't want them to totally turn the ignition off. And then we talked about this with Florida. Can they turn it on at the right time? I wouldn't want the Leafs to kind of say, okay, let's chillax a bit these last few games, and then come game 1, it's like, oh shoot, we got to play playoff hockey now. Now, playoff hockey, the atmosphere is going to be different. That kind of maybe will get the players kind of revving a bit here, but we also know the Leafs in game 1 hasn't exactly been their best friend over in history. So that's kind of also my devil's advocate with this, is that maybe the coaching staff will be like, hey, we've given you the opportunity to have days off before, didn't exactly go so well, so we think that this is going to have to be the way to go. So I just want, I would just prefer, make sure that come game 1, puck drops, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to hear, oh, this guy's dealing with this guy's dealing with that. I think
if you're dealing with something, stay. Yeah. If you're dealing with something, take a game or 2.
Yeah.
Just take it, right? Unnecessary to play game 82 if there's nothing to play for, in my opinion.
That's
for certain players. Certain players.
Not everybody.
Not everybody. Like Yarncroc, Domi, Mickey Roberts, obviously those guys, go play. Simon Benoit, go play. Right? But there's some players who've been through it, that are a little older and, that are sacrificing their bodies and are going to be important for you down the stretch. And if they could just get an extra night off. I mean, a reason why today's practice was so light was because they've got 2 back-to-backs coming up. It was optional. So they basically have gone now 2 straight days without a practice, but it's because the team is allowing the players to rest a little bit, stay off the ice, because there's a lot of hockey to be played here this week with a pair of back-to-backs tonight in Florida, tomorrow in Tampa, and then they play Saturday, Sunday, Montreal and Carolina prior to the Buffalo-Detroit final 2 games of the regular season. All right, that'll do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms to receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow, but enjoy the game tonight. Until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.